Hi, this is Akshat Malhotra, and welcome to the series on the fundamentals of personal finance. Let's begin with understanding why is it important for all of us to save and invest our money. There is this very famous writer called Simon Sinek who's written this very famous book, Start With Why. And he says, anything that you do in life must always start with the question, why? And applying that same concept here, let's try and understand why should we save and invest? And let's take a pause here. And I'd like for you to take up a pen and a paper and put it down. Why do you think it's important for all of us to save money? Why should we save money? Okay? I hope you've written down your answers, and I'm sure all of them are valid answers. So let me share why we think it's important for all of us to save money. And we feel there are two major reasons that all of us must save. Number one, in order to achieve our financial aspirations, the financial goals that we've set for ourselves. For example, the car that we've always wanted to buy, the shoes that we saw in the mall last weekend, or we want to just go sit back and relax with our friends and family on a vacation. So in order to achieve such financial aspirations, to fulfill our goals, we'd like to save money, right? And number two, for any sort of emergencies that may come up. It could be a loss in the business or a loss in our job. So any sort of emergency that may come up. So in order to keep ourselves prepared well for that, we must save money. So post the COVID times, they say that one must have an emergency fund of at least 6 months of their salary. So let's say if you're earning 50,000 rupees a month, then you must have at least 3 lakh rupees of funds as an emergency fund. Now, in case there is a loss in the job, at least you have 6 months of money, at least you have 6 months of salary, so that you can actually think wisely and take the next big decision. And therefore, that's when an emergency fund comes into rescue. So two major reasons why all of us must save. Number one, in order to achieve our financial aspiration, financial goals. And number two, in order to make sure that we can take care of ourselves in case of any sort of emergency. Right? But tell me one thing. Is saving money enough? Can you become wealthy by just saving money? Can one enjoy their entire life by just saving money? Is saving money enough? Take a pause and write it down in your notebook. And I'm sure most of you would have answered, no, it's not enough. It's just not enough for us to save money. So what do we do? The reason why it's not enough for all of us to save money is because of a termite that impacts all of us. It doesn't matter which city do I belong from, what kind of an educational background I have, what kind of a financial background one has. But each and every one of us in this world get impacted by this termite. And this termite, my friends, is nothing but inflation, mehengai, inflation. The general rise in the price of goods and services. And let's take an example of inflation straight away. Let's understand inflation straight away with an example. A bottle of Coke. Back in the year 2000, I remember I was in my school days at that time, and my mom used to give me 15 rupees a week, once in a week, to go and get myself a bottle of Coke. So in the early 2000s, a bottle of Coke would cost us about 15 rupees. Today, that same bottle of Coke ranges from 40 to 50 rupees. That's inflation. Something that was 15 rupees 20 years before is about 45-50 rupees today. So let's say if you would have saved 15 rupees back in the early 2000s, put it under your pillow or put it in your secret drawer, and would have taken it out today to go buy yourself a bottle of Coke, what would happen? You wouldn't have been able to afford it today. You can't afford it today, right? And therefore, that means that because of inflation, since you just saved your money, you're not able to afford those same things that you were able to afford 20 years before. Let's further take you down to some realistic numbers and see how could inflation impact us over the next 20 years. And I'm sure you can see this Excel sheet. Let's assume that we all have 10,000 rupees of money in our bank balance, right? 10,000 rupees, modest number. Over the last few years, we've seen that on an average, the inflation has risen by 6%. And so we've considered the same 6%. We've assumed that over the next 20 years also, inflation is going to grow up by 6%. So let's say this initial amount of 10,000 rupees, which is there, 20 years from now, calculating inflation at 6% per year, the value of this 10,000 is going to be 32,000 rupees. 32,000 rupees. What does that mean? Let's say if today you have 10,000 rupees and you want to go buy yourself a mobile phone, 20 years later, you'll have to pay 32,000 rupees to buy that particular mobile phone, that same mobile phone. Now let's go down further and see, what if you would have saved this 10,000 rupees at your home? You would have either put it again under your pillow, in your secret drawer, given it to your parents to put it in the almirah, given it to your spouse to keep it in a purse and save it for the future. So 10,000 rupees today, 20 years from now, what would happen to those 10,000 rupees? They will remain the same, 10,000 ka 10,000. It's not going to grow sitting in the almirah, right? And so, which means that 20 years later, you would not be able to afford the phone that costs 32,000 rupees. Now, let's say you said, fine, Akshat, we're not going to save it at home. We'll put it in a savings bank. So let's say you put it in a savings bank. A savings bank on an average as of today is giving you about 3.5% return. But we've assumed that, let's say, there is one bank out there that's giving you about 4% return. So calculating the 4% return, this initial amount of 10,000 rupees in the next 20 years would become roughly 22,000 rupees. Great, your money has grown. Your 10,000 has become 22,000 rupees. But has it still been able to beat inflation? Nope. You see, inflation was 32,000, your money has grown to just 22,000, which means that you would still not be able to afford the same things that you were able to afford today, not able to afford them 20 years later, right? And finally, coming to the last row here, let's say you invest those 10,000 rupees and you invest them into any sort of avenue, any sort of financial avenue that gives you 10% return, then this 10,000 grows up to 67,000 rupees, which means it's not just beaten the inflation of 32,000 rupees, but has also given you that extra money to take care of your financial health, to achieve your financial goals, to achieve all that you've aspired to gain in life, right? To fulfill all your materialistic goals. And that's why, my friends, that's why it's important for all of us to invest. Look at this graph right on the right side. At home, the graph, at savings bank, how the inflation is still not beaten, but at investing, the extra green portion there, that's what all of us need to aim for in life. And therefore, it's very, very important for all of us to invest our money. It doesn't matter where do we come from, what kind of background we have, but all of us need to invest. Now that you understand it's important to invest, I'm sure all of you must be thinking, but how can we grow our investments even more? How do we make the most of our savings and investments? Well, let's study about that in the next chapter.
I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe to this channel and stay tuned for more such videos.